Welcome back to the Important Nonsense Podcast. 32 teams in 32 days. As we roll on, we're almost there, guys. We're almost there. Tampa Bay Buccaneers edition. Down in Florida, God's waiting room. Neil Smith, Mike Manning, Jason Draven. Couple quick PSAs before we get started. Doing what we do here today, breaking down all 32 teams, getting you prepped up for your fantasy football drafts here in the next week, 2 weeks. It's amazing that we're getting this close to the season. So as we roll through this, standard caveats apply. This is all based around 12-team PPR redraft, standard 16-round type of deal. All the rankings that you'll hear, the base rankings at least, come from Fantasy Pros and their ECR. We are a Fantasy Pros affiliate, and we love working with them. Shout out to Fantasy Pros. The depth charts come courtesy of Player Profiler. Shout out to Jack Kavanaugh. Appreciate your work as always. Hope you're well. Check us out at importantnonsense.com. Sign up to be a member. That'll get you access to our Discord. We answer questions, chop it up. We also have $5. $5. We will do personalized analysis for your team. You will get your own podcast centered around your team and your league. We'll talk about trades, your roster, waiver wire, things you should be looking out for, and kind of give you our general feedback. So check that out. That is worth its weight in gold. So for simple $5, you get your own personalized podcast. Figured that out 4 for 4. Yeah. I said it. I'm not sorry either. But also at importantnonsense.com, you can check out our merch store. And when you get access to our Discord and become a member, that also gets you access to our paywall content, like Mike Manning's cornerback wide receiver matchups that come out every week, which is a super helpful tool. And also you get access to all of Jason's flaming hot takes. So good that they can't even be debuted on this. They're too hot for YouTube. Way too hot for YouTube. You got to keep those behind the paywall. And with that, we'll go through Tampa Bay. Yeesh. Remember when this team had Tom Brady?
Feels like forever ago.
Remember when they went to the Super Bowl? Won the Super Bowl?
That was forever ago.
That was forever ago. Simpler time. Simpler time. Those days are over. And Mike, I think you and I probably see this broadly the same way based on some analysis I saw you given to one of our actual site members when they were asking you about this, which is this feels like they're screaming into a full-on rebuild.
Yeah. I mean, we saw Baker Mayfield. This is his 4th team he's going to be starting a game for. And we just know what he is now. I don't care that he's going to have Godwin and Mike Evans and Rachaad White and so on surrounding him. He is what he is. He's going to be a headache of a player because he's solid, but he's not great. He's not going to win you many games other than the last drive he did against the Raiders last year for the Rams. That is the only real time that you're going to be like, oh yeah, he won the game for him. And it's probably because he didn't have enough time to learn or think too much about it because he just got off the plane. So he didn't have to think about it. Just went out there, slung the ball a bunch, and then beat a porous Raiders defense.
The days, oh God, that defense, don't, oh jeez, I don't like thinking about that. That secondary was brutal. If you're banking on that, you're going to be sad. But yeah, the days of young Baker Mayfield in Cleveland putting the headband on and people getting all excited, that's not what this is anymore. Those days are all in the rear view.
I mean, do you think there's an over-under that Trask sees 2.5 starts?
Oh, I would take the over.
Right?
Yeah, I would smash the over on that.
Whether Baker gets hurt or Baker just plays like Baker. It's very plausible and possibly more probable that Trask sees the field so that Tampa Bay can sit there and just try and get as close as possible to that number 1 pick.
You're right.
To do anything they can to get Caleb Williams.
Well, plus...
Or even Drake May.
If Baker goes bad Baker, 4 interception Baker, and that starts happening...
Which we saw a whole year ago.
Which we did. And that's why I referenced that number specifically. 4 interception Baker. That's not going to cut it here. And the fan base won't put up with it. And they'll turn the heat up on this so much so that the team will feel like they have to do something else. And they'll go to Trask because that's what people will be clamoring for is Just do something that isn't this, because this isn't working. That happens all the
Popular
time.
position on the roster.
Yeah, happens all the time.
Backup QB.
And I don't much care for Kyle Trask. I didn't like him coming out of Florida. I didn't like him coming into the league. He looks like Lurch from the Adams family. It's like, I'm amazed that he wasn't drafted by John Elway. I still can't figure out how he managed to not get drafted by John Elway, because that's the John Elway prototype. It's this giant hulk of a man, not very fast, and he can throw the ball far. And he's got accuracy issues, or has, and they say that he's made some significant strides in camp. Not enough to beat out Baker Mayfield, who also has accuracy issues. But it wouldn't shock me if Kyle Trask was starting, Mike. No. And I think 2.5 is on the low side of that. I think what if I set the number at 5?
I take the under on 5.
On the under on 5? Okay.
Yeah.
Just trying to see what we think the actual line of demarcation is here.
Yeah.
But if it starts to go sideways, I wouldn't be shocked if Kyle Trask is in there. And then also, that would also accomplish something else, which is if Kyle Trask poops the bed, that ends that conversation as well. So you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It's, oh, hey, we tried that. It didn't work. He didn't like that either. Plus, now we have a really high draft pick, so maybe we can get one of those guys that you mentioned. We can just blow this whole thing up and begin again. Because I think that's probably where we're headed here. I agree with that take, Mike, from our Discord conversation with the fans, where it's like, no, I think that's probably more real than people want to believe. This is kind of the last gasp, I think, of this crew. If this doesn't work as constructed, I think they just blow it all up. Because why wouldn't you? What would be the incentive to keep it together at that point? You're not going anywhere. Might as well start again. Neither Baker nor Kyle Trask have ADPs, and there's a reason for that. Because you don't know how long each one is going to go. Both of them, I would argue, have capped upside. And very capped upside, actually. So you've just got... There's just no reason. Jason, you do a lot of like streamers and stuff like that because of the waiver show. Are you even excited about either of those guys as like a streamer, possibly? That's kind of what they are as by ADP, in the sense they don't have ADPs.
I don't know. I was looking at the futures to see if if there is anything where Kyle Trask starting.
It's not a bad idea.
I got a little distracted.
That's not a bad. What does BetMGM think? What's their number?
I can't. That's what just it. I was trying to find something. I'm like, there's nothing.
Oh, Vegas doesn't even want the bet. Oh god. Oh god. I've seen Vegas take some really questionable bets. If they don't want it, it says something.
I mean, I'm sure there's probably an opportunity that you're going to be looking at because they do have some weapons around the quarterback. It's just you're going to have to pick the right week for that to happen. And they're more than likely going to still be okay on defense. They're usually pretty stout there, and they want to keep that game slow and close. That's the case. It really takes it out of the quarterback's hands, so it wouldn't matter who's quarterback. But if they actually have to chase, that would be kind of when you're looking for them. And based on that, I'm looking at week 3 currently against the Eagles, where you might have a second half of junk time, just straight up garbage time for the second half. That might be an opportunity.
If we're into streamers by the time we get to week 3, I feel like something has gone really awry with my team here.
Yeah.
I'm not super interested in that.
I stream all year. I don't know what you're talking about. So.
By ranking, the only one that would even be close to having an ADP is Baker. He is the QB 32 in fantasy by ranking. That is bad. That is like 2 QB territory. Even then, you're looking at it like, do I really feel like I need this? Like, and that's in a league where every quarterback gets drafted. So it's even in 2 QB, you're looking at so for 1 QB, which is what this is aimed at. Yeesh. You're talking about like
week 7 versus Detroit?
Maybe just because the game could get out of control.
Yeah, that's the prime ones is you want to get a team that they're going against to have a strong offense, poor defense type
during
of
bye weeks. During bye weeks. Yeah, that's kind of what you're looking for. But I mean, you're talking about like just to illustrate it, like you're talking about Desmond Ridder and Mac Jones are both being drafted ahead of Baker Mayfield. And we can go back through it, what our thoughts were on both of those players. And it was not positive. Just to put a fine point on it. Like those, we were out on those guys, and Baker's lower than that. And to be honest with you, I agree. I agree with all of that.
Week 9. That's the one you're looking for. Tampa versus Houston.
Sure.
God, remind me to not watch that game. Hang on. Siri! Put a note in. I'm not watching that. Turn that. I got to black that out. Can't watch that. Weirdly, there's just nothing else to talk about. Those are going to be the quarterbacks, and it is what it is. It's not going to change. It's just going to be that all season, and you don't want it for fantasy. It's going to be hard to justify any part of it. You're just hoping that they're good enough to not crater out the skill position guys, such as they are. Leonard Fournette, no longer on this team. Leonard Fournette actually still a free agent as of the recording of this. We'll see how long into the season that lasts. But his time in Tampa Bay is over. That surprised a lot of people because I think the conventional logic was, well, we know we're going to be bad, so why don't we just give it to Leonard Fournette and let him just eat the damage? But they didn't even want to do that. They didn't want to pay him. So now you're into this new room that they have, which is a mix of familiar faces and a couple new additions. You've got the one that I think matters, and I think everyone would agree matters, is Rachaad White in year 2. He was the pass-catching back that they drafted. He had a pretty decent little opening campaign from a catching of the football standpoint, especially. Had some efficiency issues at certain points, but he was a rookie, and at that point, they were a much better team. Now, Rachaad White he's the lead dog in the backfield, and he might keep me honest. You'd have to. How many passes did Rachaad White catch last year? It was a lot. For even on a split roll.
He caught 50 passes.
50 balls with Leonard Fournette still being the primary running back.
And so Baker is not one to be afraid to just dump it off to a running back.
No, Baker was actually one of when he was with Cleveland, when he had Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, I believe he would usually average something like 4th every year in terms of passes to running backs. So he's not afraid to dump it off to the guys in the backfield at all.
Know, but Fournette's 83 targets is just insane. Like that's
sure, but he's gone. But he's gone.
I'm just
so
the fact that even a number. I'm like
Rachaad White is the one that's high. I'm still very high on Rachaad White. I was high on him coming out of college, and it's because he's the prototypical PPR running back, good hands, fast, good in space, and also not totally useless at running the ball between the tackles. He can do it, but that's not really the point of Rachaad White. The point is dump it off, get it to him in space, and let him put his foot in the ground and do something. That's the point of Rachaad White. And with that many vacated targets from Fournette, plus what he was already getting, plus the transition to Baker at quarterback, I'm wheels up on Rachaad White, guys. I'm in on this. I like getting me some Rachaad White for 2023 fantasy. I feel good about it. He ticks a lot of my boxes.
Well, even the third target with Fournette gone, Gage would be the next target up, and he's out for the year. So,
yeah.
A lot of targets, man. There's so many options now. Good lordy.
Yeah, and if you're looking at just in general his ADP for players he's going around in terms of running backs, he's going behind guys like DeAndre Swift. He's going around Dalvin Cook, like Brian Robinson. These are A.J. Dillon. Like, these are guys that I have no question
the RB1 for the team.
Mike, I was going to say, the big difference is those are all guys in committees. And Rachaad White, I'm not actually convinced is in a committee. I'm sure someone else will do stuff. But
so behind him is Keyshawn Vaughn, the failed running back that everybody picked in Dynasty, and
who we've seen play for years badly.
Yeah, his contributions have been more special teams than they've been offense. They also brought in Chase Edmonds, whoever
we watched him flame out hard last year.
Yeah, whoever bit the bullet on drafting him as a mid-round running back in Miami, obviously didn't go well because he didn't even finish the year on Miami. And it was not because of trade; it was because of cut.
Yes, he was literally cut.
It would be a trade as being cut type player, but either way. And then also they brought in Sean Tucker as a UDFA, I believe.
As a UDFA. Before that, they actually brought in Patrick Laird, who's knocked around the NFL as like a journeyman forever, but is not a threat to anyone.
I was like, he's a fullback, right?
No, not really. He's kind of like a swing guy. He can play some fullback,
I think it was used
but
mildly as a receiving fullback at times in Miami.
that's what he was.
Okay,
He was the receiving fullback. He's not really big enough to play true fullback, but he's not really fast enough to play running back, but he can catch. That's how he's managed to knock around the league for several years.
I mean, Brian Edwards
Uh,
can't even keep a job. I don't know how.
And then Mike, we're going to go into Sean Tucker here because this is the one that people are starting to warm up to. But just to put a fine point on Rachaad White, he opens as the RB23, should be going at about 68 overall with that by ranking. He's going at 65, and I feel like that the hate has gone too far. I know folks are saying this is going to be a bad team, don't really want to deal with it. You know, it's kind of a lost season. Great. Love that. Love that as analysis because it means I will roster all the Rachaad Whites for myself, and no one else can have any because I firmly believe that if the chips fell the right way, that Rachaad White could actually murder that ADP. He could just bury it.
I have him at 15, so
I think he could.
Yeah.
I think he could beat. I think that's probably about right. I think he could beat that.
and that's only giving him 66 targets. I mean, I didn't even take him up to the
That's
80
what I'm
mark.
saying. Like I think there's an outside chance that he could literally finish in the top 12.
Nobody else on that team in terms of the running back room is, necessarily the strongest receiving back. I know Chase Edmonds has done it in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He has the
Keyshawn Vaughn,
ability.
yeah, but hasn't done it recently. And as we said for Patrick Laird, be kind of surprised if he even really makes the team.
A little bit, yeah.
So
Good for him if he does.
Keyshawn Vaughn, has he done
No.
it? I guess.
No.
Like he's been more
No.
the pass blocking running back.
There's
than
no
pass
there's
catching.
no combination of words you could say to make me excited about Keyshawn Vaughn.
Yeah. So they were expected to sign somebody when they let Leonard Fournette go, and they didn't. Well, they did Chase Edmonds, but they didn't. They were like, if Kareem Hunt showed up there, then you can have a conversation to be wondering.
Then we'll throw some cold water on my enthusiasm, and I'll be very upset if that actually was to happen. But as for what we know right now, for me, it's the Rachaad White show. It's not close. And I don't feel like people are paying attention to that because the ADP just feels wrong to me. You listed it, Mike. You gave the list I had prepared, which is like A.J. Dillon? This is all focused around PPR, guys. Forget the committee, non-committee thing for just two. Give me the one that catches the passes. Like, same thing with Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson? I like Brian Robinson, fine. But, like, nice story. Good player. Not even comparable in PPR. Not the same thing. I just don't get it. I don't get where the hate is coming from. And to be honest, I don't care. Because I'm just going to roster all the Rachaad White myself. This is one of those, like, huge values that I feel like you can find when you start mining the bad teams that people aren't excited about. Like the Rams and the Bucks and some of the other teams we've been through where it's like, no, Green Bay, where it's like no one is interested in this team because they're going to be bad. I feel like this is how this can happen. It's one of the reasons that something like this could happen. But Mike, Sean Tucker is the other one that I think actually is somewhat interesting because he has no ADP by far and away, no ADP. You can just have Sean Tucker. And of those names we've listed, I think Sean Tucker is the one, based on what we've seen in the preseason, that could be the actual running back, the true running back, like the one that runs the ball between the tackles and gets some of that work.
Yeah.
Who else would do it?
In college, coming out of Syracuse, he's a rookie this year, obviously, but when he was at Syracuse, he was considered in the same conversation going into last college football season as the big group of players behind B. John Robinson as the big, who could be number two. And it was like Gibbs, Tank Bigsby, Sean Tucker, these was Charbonnet, like these were the names that were all bouncing around before the college football season as talented players that have shown it in college. Do they take the next step and take a stranglehold on the number two running back in this class? Sean Tucker didn't have the greatest of years, and Syracuse was a bad team, as they have been for a while. But so his talent is there, and then he fell in the draft because of, I think it's a reported heart condition that was found in physicals. Cleared to play, obviously, because he's playing in the preseason. So maybe long-term isn't the biggest outlook for him or the best outlook for him, but this season, he's certainly the most talented behind Rachaad White.
I feel like he could easily beat out some of those tomato cans that we listed, where it's just like those are just journeymen, those are just guys, they're bodies.
He's the
Chase
guy that
Edmonds
you
has the most
like.
pedigree.
You finish your draft and then immediately put that star next to him
Yeah,
in the free agent pool. Like, there's those guys that you were like, should I draft him? No, maybe not. But he's the guy that like you immediately get done with the draft and then like pick the star for the watch list.
he's also the guy that if I'm going all in on Rachaad White, that I might just pick up with the last pick of my draft because no one else will want him, and I'll just save myself some fab
As
and
you
just
said,
take care
free.
of it. Yeah, and if it blows up and he doesn't end up being anything, I'll cut him after a couple weeks, and it will have cost me effectively nothing. I don't care. So he's the one that those are the two players that I have circled and starred for the running back room. I'm not buying the Chase Edmonds, the Chase Edmonds. I'm not buying the Chase Edmonds career resurgence narrative that some people are trying to push. Like, oh, he's healthy again, and I'm like, not after what you did. Not after what you did last year, bud. Can't do it. Can't go there. So I'd recommend staying far away from that. The wide receiver room is largely stuff we've all seen before. It's Chris Godwin, it's Mike Evans, and it was Russell Gage until he got hurt again. And that's a shame because Russell Gage is a decent enough player when healthy. We've seen him be productive in the NFL, but he's going to miss the entire season. So you can just scratch Russell Gage right off. And then it becomes a next man up conversation between Trey Palmer and Devin Thompkins. And Trey Palmer is probably the one you'd want of those, but he has no ADP. So do with
Well,
that
and
what you
you're
will.
worried about whoever actually being able to throw it deep. Because that's what you're going to use it
Well,
for.
if it's Kyle Trask, I have less concerns.
Yeah, fair. But again, that's what you want with him because he is fast and he will separate because he is going to just be faster than everybody else on the field.
Yeah, Jason's analysis of he fast
He
from
very
the
fast.
last
4.3
from the
very
Steelers
fast.
show to yesterday's show
I like
to
the fast
this
guys.
show. Jason's analysis is he
I'm like
fast.
the Raiders. I want the fast ones. Give them to me. I'm going to take my shot on them. Find somebody who can throw downfield. We'll be set.
Mike, Jason wrote a poem to Calvin Austin III during the Steelers show. It was like a love letter. It was a full sonnet. It was in full iambic pentameter.
Mike likes it. I don't know what your problem is.
I was gonna say I'm happy he's on the team. Like with the wide receiver room looks great. You got George Pickens doing his thing with the crazy one-handed catches. Even though he can't get open, he still can at least he can do a DeAndre Hopkins-esque imitation and make the crazy catches. So that's good. And then I've always been a Deontay fan. Allen Robinson,
wide open.
Yeah, Allen Robinson and then Calvin Austin. It's like a perfect just mesh of great different types of players.
It's how little there is to talk about in Tampa Bay that we're just going to rehash the Steelers for no reason. Like,
well, we wanted Mike to be there, but he was too good for us.
He was on vacation. But he was on vacation. But okay,
big time. It's fine.
But we're sitting there and like what you're hoping for with Baker is the 2019 season he had where he was playing his best football. They just got Odell Beckham in Cleveland, and Jarvis Landry was still there. So you're hoping Mike Evans is Odell Beckham, and you're hoping that Chris Godwin is Jarvis Landry.
Juice.
So is that going to happen? I doubt it. They both had 11. They both had over 1,000 yards and had a handful of touchdowns each. Godwin had double-digit points in PPR every single game last year except one. It was the final game. Well, the first game he got hurt, so that doesn't count. And then the final game of the season where he had like 8 or 9 points in PPR. He's going to be the short intermediate guy. Evans has had 1,000 yards every single year of his career, but like Lockett, we had said in the Seattle episode, you're not going to be happy every week.
Maybe
That's
not.
just how he is.
Historically, there was less variance with Mike Evans. Last year was the one that it was very Tyler Lockett-esque, where it's like, yeah, this could be really good, it could be really bad. Like historically, you get a little bit more consistency with Mike Evans, but I do see where you're going there. Chris Godwin, as mentioned, opens as the wide receiver 21. Should be going at about 67 by rank. Is going at 67 by ADP. So I have no notes on this other than feels slightly low based on what he was able to accomplish historically. But that being said, I get it with the quarterback issue that you're dealing with. But I'm right there with you, Mike. What you're hoping for is he's Jarvis Landry. in the prime Jarvis Landry, Baker Mayfield connection years, because Baker likes to work the middle of the field. Chris Godwin works the middle of the field, and he does it well. He creates space. He gets open. He's a really good route runner. He's got good hands. We've seen Chris Godwin play football. I don't have any issue with taking Chris Godwin in the middle of the 6th round, is what that is. I feel like that's pretty good. That doesn't even feel like the ceiling to me. I feel like you still got some meat on that bone, if that's what you want to do. The real value is Mike Evans, because you just mentioned it. 1,000 yards every year. That's hard to do, man. What is that, 9 years in a row? It's something like that, where he's had 1,000-yard season. It's like 8 or 9 in a row running.
Yeah.
And because of last year's, I mean, you're talking about a guy who was consensus top 5 wide receiver for most of that time. You know what I mean? And because last year, it wasn't, when you look at the final numbers at the end of the year, it wasn't that bad. The problem was it felt bad. It was a real feels bad type of thing to roster him last year, because a lot of people felt like they didn't get what they paid for. And hey, you know what? You probably didn't. But it wasn't the disaster that people want to make it out to be on the world's favorite platform, Twitter. But it wasn't that bad. It's weird, though, because this year Mike Evans opens as the wide receiver 34, translates what should be going at about 63 overall. So he should be going right there next to Godwin. His ADP is 81. And because of this, Mike Evans is the one that I find myself rostering. And all the mocks and expert drafts feel like you're getting a real nice steep discount there.
Yeah, I mean, based on the ADP, everybody's expecting, like I had said, Godwin to be the number 1 target because of what Baker has done with the slot weapons before in the past. He's only had the one good year where he had an outside weapon that was a prominent outside weapon, down the field type deep threat. Mm-hmm. He can throw the deep ball, but it's not really something he does frequently throughout his career.
Well. Yeah, not consistently well. He'll do it, but it's not by choice.
But I think people are sitting there and still stirring on the fact that the end of the season for Mike Evans was week 12 on 5 points, 10 points, 8 points, 13, 6, 49.
Yeah, 49.
So they're just like, oh, well, he's just going to be a nightmare to roster.
Not wrong.
But you're talking about like Tyler Lockett. He's going 10 spots lower than Tyler Lockett. So that's where I'm trying to wrap my head around, like, okay, that's what we're doing. And I meant 10 ADP spots, not 10 wide receiver spots, by the way. Just to clarify that point. So, I don't know. He's the one that I find myself gravitating towards, because you know me, I like me some discounts. I don't mind. I'm fine with Chris Godwin at ADP, but I definitely don't want both. That's dumb. Don't do that.
On this offense.
I don't know. Yeah. Pick one and go with it. I just thought it was worth bringing that up, that it's like, wow, Mike Evans feels like a steal given his historical production numbers. That feels like a nice steep discount that you're getting there. So just something to note in the draft room. And now we go to Jason for him to talk about tight ends, because I can't be bothered. Jason, they have Cade Otton. Talk about Cade Otton.
I wish I could. I'm really nervous about him this year, just because I'm not sure what this offense is with either of them. I'd expect more of an uptick with Mayfield, but again, we're not sure how often he's going to be, or how long he's going to survive under center. So, I mean, I'm sure I'll find some weeks to stream him. He saw a couple weeks where he's a pretty useful tight end last year in fantasy, but definitely not somebody you're probably looking to. I mean, clearly doesn't have any kind of ADP, not even showing up on the list. And so probably a streaming candidate for sure. Just going to be tough to decide if and when you're going to use him. I mean, like I said, I still think he's going to be pretty connected to Mayfield more than Trash until, I mean, I think Evans is probably the bigger target of the two. So I'd expect him to go as a first target over Otton at that point. So it'll be fine. It'll be okay. Don't love it.
I mean, if he's going behind players like Darnell Washington, Foster Moreau, so on, like this isn't rocket science here. He's a starting tight end with a at least relatively decent starting quarterback in a division that is awful. So, like, he's going to be the range of back-end tight end 1s, high-end tight end 2s, where you're hoping for a couple catches and grab one in the end zone.
For the record, he's going behind folks who listened to yesterday's show. We talked about Noah Fant. He's going behind Noah Fant.
Which I would, no chance I'm taking. Yeah. Cade Otton way ahead of Noah Fant.
Yeah. Well, because Noah Fant's sharing a job, and at least Cade Otton at this point pretty much has that job to himself, because all the other blockers that were on that team, and I don't mean tight end blockers, I mean people blocking him from playing time, they're all pretty much gone. So it's pretty much his job at this point. I just don't. There's a reason there's no ADP on it, and I wouldn't spend any more time on it than that. But yeah, if you're looking for streaming tight end, it's a name to know. It's somebody that could theoretically creep into usable tight end status and is more than capable of catching your red zone target, falling into the end zone, and paying you off for the entire week right there. So someone that will probably be on Jason's Monday night waiver show more often than not until it gets prohibitively rostered. That's it, guys. There's not a lot here. They've had some injuries. They've lost some of their familiar faces. It's kind of down to the big three. It's just not much left. And Mike, it wouldn't shock me if, to be honest with you, if this went really, 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 really south, some of these folks might not even be on this team by the end of the year, given what their contract status is and what they could accomplish in other places. And if the Bucs do going back all the way to the beginning of the show, if the Bucs did decide to blow it up and go full rebuild, I could see some of these guys having different jobs.
Mike Evans would be talked at trade deadlines in the NFL trade deadline.
NFL trade deadline, yes.
And otherwise, it would be mostly defensive players that would be shipped off because
they'd finish blowing up that defense, and then Mike Evans would very possibly have a new job.
Yep.
So, because he's on the last year of his deal, and he's 30, and they might just be like, "All right, Mike, really appreciate you, but time to go."
Yeah.
Got to get what we can. So. Yeah, the only two players that I think are pretty much locks to finish out the year on the team, it's like Rachaad White, because I don't see any reason to get rid of him, and then Chris Godwin, because he's still so young that it's like, why would you bother getting rid of either of those two guys? They're safe. Everyone else is not a lock to be on this team by the end of the year. Neither quarterback, none of it. So this is one of the most tumultuous, weirdest teams. And what's weird is I still think they'd struggle to get that number 1 overall pick out of Arizona's greasy hands.
They're just a mediocrely good roster, which means that you're not bad enough that you're going to actually fight for the number 1 pick. But you're not good enough that you're going to get past even fighting for a playoff wild card spot.
It'd be
even
hard
in the NFC.
It'd be hard.
The NFC South.
Yeah, right.
They are prime spot to make a run to the playoffs. Except for the one big question mark holding their team back. Good old quarterback.
Yep.
Well, Williams already said he doesn't want to go to Arizona, more or less. So.
Yeah, well, I hate to tell you, but that's not how the NFL works. So unless your
name
is Eli Manning, or no, Eli Manning, and I think maybe Phillip Rivers got involved in one of those at one point.
Well, that's swapped.
Yeah, that was it. That's what I'm thinking of. It was that one. So, yeah, very rare. Every 30 years, basically, that something like that will happen. And Eli only got out because his daddy's Archie Manning. So
NIL money, man.
Well, now it's all different because of the NIL money. Maybe you do hang out for another year.
Yeah, Caleb would. Options. If he really saw what the number 1 pick was and did not like the team, stay, make a bunch of money in college.
Yeah. Also, live like a celebrity for one more year. You have
to stay at USC.
Yeah, you get to stay at USC and be the quarterback for the football team. Yeah, no, I bet that doesn't suck. I bet that's probably pretty good. Anyway,
his annual valuation is 2.6.
Unfortunately, tomorrow we have to talk about something that probably will suck, and that's the Tennessee Titans. But until then, keep up the nonsense.
I'm Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, and you can find all the guys at ImportantNonsense.com. Kaboom!